So normally, I suggested howdy, but today I don't feel like saying howdy. Instead, if you would, let's have a few moments of silence for the Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, who were killed earlier today, and for State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, who are alive after having gone through surgery. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. We were having such a wonderful time today at the rally, and then we got the news. But we continued to rally, and we'll get to that. Last Saturday, we had 200 people at the rally, and we were so happy to have 200. Okay, today's rally, you want to guess how many people were there? 1,000. We think it was 1,000. And everybody was so joyful, as I say. Thank you very much. It was just a wonderful event, wasn't it? How many were there? Oh, right, I don't have to talk to the choir, they're here. So, anyhow, it was just a wonderful event. We're going to have another rally next Saturday, and this time our emphasis is once again on the schools. Save our schools here in Arizona. So, come to the rally next Saturday. Let's see if we get 1,001. 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Yeah, I think through the summer. We'll just, good, join us next Saturday for sure. So, okay. Couple of things. We have been challenged by, and we have the president here from Quail Creek, the Democrat Club of Quail Creek. Anyhow, they have challenged us to come up with a good slogan. You remember a couple of weeks I talked about, we need something rah-rah. I think the national DNC is talking about moving forward together. I mean, it doesn't do it for me. We got to come up with something better. Like I said, my idea was wake up and speak up before it's too late. I might still win. Because I'm in charge. Come up with something good. So, first of all, Stephanie Stahl Hamilton is going to speak to us. Stephanie Stahl Hamilton, everybody.
Thank you so much. It is good to be with you all again. I am State Representative Stephanie Stahl Hamilton, representing all 2,100 square miles of Legislative District 21. I would have thought that we would have been out of session by now, but it seems like since my time I've been in there since 2021, we seem to go to at least the middle of June, if not the end. I am the ranking member on the Appropriations Committee in the House of Representatives, and so this year I have had a front row seat to the budget on the Appropriations team. The Senate before us, and I'll let Senator Gabaldon let you know about her chamber, but before we got to the place where we were ready to start working on the budget, the Senate had been adjourning and only shown up at least once a week or once every other week to sign in, pray, pledge, maybe do a little bit of work and sign out. We had been going pretty strongly, but for the last 5 weeks, 4 weeks, the House has done that where we've only called the members in for 1 day a week, and then they're back home and in their districts. Part of that, if we're going to drag this session out, I think part of that's been really helpful because we don't have members showing up and being bored, right? And so, if any of you are teachers, when you let the kids get bored, what happens, right? You get shenanigans, you get a lot of squirreliness. You get things going sideways. And so if the members are home in their districts, occupied, a lot of members work 2 jobs. I mean, the legislative job, and they have another job that they work. So they certainly can occupy their time better when we're not in session, just sitting around killing time. But for the last 5 weeks, I have been up at the legislature up in Phoenix at least 3-4 days a week, 8 hours a day, working on the budget and budget negotiations. Now, This is our third year with Governor Katie Hobbs, and so, you know, the tide is starting to shift to think about next year. It's going to be an election year. So this is kind of the year for us to really try to get as much done and as much into the budget as possible. Because in election year, the governor's going to have to be she's going to have to be careful how she threads that needle. You know, as much as we want a Democratic budget, she's going to get Democratic votes. What she wants are the independent votes. And she wants some of the Republicans to come alongside as well, because if you look at voter registration. So next year's budget's going to be more political than anything. And it's just how the cycle works. That's just what is, that is the landscape. I wish it was different, but it is not. And so she's going to have to be a little more judicious with next year's budget. But this year, you know, what's been really nice is that in the House of Representatives, our leadership from the second week of session started with a laser focus on getting us to the budget. So all session long, we have been meeting with our caucus at least once a week in budget discussions. And it's been a series of conversations and then surveys trying to figure out what our members want. And we did a robust, and it was a member-driven process of finding out what our caucus priorities are. And this year, it's a good thing to do because last year we were in a deficit and we had to do a lot of cuts across the board. All of our state agencies had to cut their budgets 3.5%. So that, you know, which means people lost jobs, right? Already we know a lot of our agencies and our departments are underfunded and the people who work are overworked. It was very, very troubling, but things seemed to be on an uptick until November happened. And then in January, we know, you know, there's all these talks about where federal funds are going and how much of that is going to be cut. So as we have stepped into this legislative session, our leader said, look, here's where we're starting and things look positive. It looked like we had rebounded in the state of Arizona. But the thing about Arizona is we are what is called a receiver state, in that 40% of our general funds come from the federal government. And that's not a bad thing, except for now. You know, we have been able to take advantage of so many programs in Arizona that for every dollar we put out, we draw down anywhere between $2 to $15. That's a good deal, and it's a good deal for people who are some of our most disenfranchised and vulnerable people. We have been able to make life stable for them, and that's our job as public servants, is to care for our people, to serve them in such a way that they have stability in their lives. And so when we realized that there were going to be cuts to all of these federal programs that we have been able to take advantage of, we had to make some really tough decisions about the budget. And you all have run household budgets for years. You know you can't spend above your means. You know what that looks like. And so all of the conversations we have had week in, week out, our caucus came together with 6 priorities. Education, healthcare, childcare, right? A lot of our families need help with childcare so parents can go to work. Higher education, housing, and water. 6 priorities. And we thought if we're going to craft a budget and there's any surplus beyond the baseline of what's already in our general fund, we are going to find the things that we can fund in these categories that are going to make the biggest positive impact we can for the whole state of Arizona. And so at some point we decided, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to have a big surplus. We might have to just go in and start protecting programs. And education, again, K-12, #1 priority for the House Democrats. So we spent the whole session building this budget, building our framework, getting members, not opinions, but perspective. And that whole process created some incredible buy-in from the membership. And right now there's 27 Democrats, and that's a lot of people to wrangle, right? And to get on board with some priorities. But we've done that. And so when it came time to be done and to start having the budget conversations, we were ready to roll. And what's been really interesting for me being the first time, ranking member on appropriations. So this is the first time I've been able to enter into budget conversations. I've served on the Finance Committee over in the Senate for 1 year. I've been on appropriations for 3 years. So I've been in the arena, but now as ranking member, I'm getting a front row seat. And it has occurred to me there's 5 major players in a budget, in development of a budget. You've got your House Democrats, your House Republicans, Senate Democrats, Senate Republicans, and the governor. That's 5 entities vying for state dollars. You got to put them in a room and ask them to figure it out. Now, within 4 of those entities, those caucuses, you've got members who look at budgeting interesting and very different. And there are some people that just want what they want, and they don't care what else is in the budget as long as they get what they want. It doesn't matter if it's popular, with other members in their caucus. So you can imagine it's a very contentious process building a budget. Well, the last 5 weeks, we have had Senate Democrats, Senate Republicans, House Democrats, and the governor negotiating. 4 out of the 5 entities. And this last Monday, the chair of appropriations, who is a Republican, he and his vice chair decided they would craft a budget and drop it. And that was the most extreme budget I have seen in my time. And I know, mind you, I've only been there 5 years, but it was extremely, it was extreme. And so now we're in a quandary, because we've got 4 of the 5 who have been negotiating in good faith and have been working towards this finish line. And as of yesterday, we were 98% of the way there. We just had that last little bit to negotiate, and we were ready to go for this week. But now that the House, and so then House Republicans, so it was a whole day of getting these bills so they could go to the Committee on the Whole, which is where we go to the House floor and we debate legislation. We can go back and forth. But when we were briefed on this budget, let me tell you, in appropriations, the bills had to go through appropriations. The lobbyists were all there knowing that this was a Republican budget, House Republican budget, not even the Senate Republicans, they're not on this budget. House Republican budget, only one lobbyist group, one stakeholder stood up and said, "Thank you, Mr. Chair, I would like to say we are here in support of this budget." All of the other lobbyists that were there, and the hearing room was packed, and I've never seen this, stood up and said, "Thank you, Mr. Chair, my name is so-and-so, and I represent so-and-so, and I am here in respectful opposition." Lobbyist after lobbyist, we did this for an hour. Yeah, yes, that is something. So that tells you how extreme this budget is. And here I am as ranking member having to sit through, and as we went through, there's one, what we call a fee bill, and that's the overall budget, and then it gets broken down into the policy. There's 13 of those bills, so it's 14 bills that we had to listen to. We as the Democrats decided we each would make a comment about the policy, how this budget was not negotiated, nobody was consulted, and it was just being rammed down our throats. And I was so proud of my team. They were on message, they stayed disciplined. We made our one statement on the fee bill, and then we just sat there and we voted no when it was time to vote no. And we didn't ask questions. We were not going to validate that document by asking questions and getting curious. And so I was really proud of my team. Sometimes that can get interpreted differently, like you don't care. But what we know is that the negotiated budget is in the works. I think I'll let Senator continue the story when she gets up here, because I think it's on the move. And the nice thing about this is once we get to the finish line where it passes in the Senate, when there's agreement, it passes in the Senate, it will come over to the House. We will have to go through committee all over again, and then we'll have to take it to the floor. We will have to debate all over again. Then we can flip it to third read. That is a 3-day process, and it is a long process. And so we'll have to start it all over again. Yesterday, as we were waiting for committee on the whole to debate, it takes hours for Ledge Council to get the policy there. So you'll get 4 bills, you'll debate them, and then you wait around for a couple of hours. They'll bring 4 more over. You debate those, and then they bring the amendments over. So it's a full day, and they figured that we probably would be done about 2:30 in the morning. Well, somewhere in the middle of the day, the Democrats were all sitting around, and the Republicans were fighting amongst themselves. There's 33 Republicans in the House, 27 Democrats. You need 31 to pass. Well, 2 Republicans were in Canada and were refusing to come back because they didn't want to vote. They were not happy with the process, and they didn't want to be there to vote. And we were like, well, we were hearing all kinds of rumors, because rumors fly around, like, are some of the Republicans off of this budget? They weren't happy about having to be there. They weren't happy about what was in it. And at some point, we all looked around and we thought, we're all nose. Why are we sitting around here for the dog and pony show? So all the Democrats cleared out. We were like, you're on your own. This is your budget. You crafted it. You can sell it. And I was really surprised that leadership said, no, just go home. We are not staying up because we know we got to go back next week and we got to start the process all over again. And budget days, as a senator can tell you, she has been through so many more than I have, that budget days are long. You're there 12, 14 hours. You go and you get 2 hours of sleep and you come back and you do it all over again until you get to the end. So I am grateful for our leadership that they sent us home. So if you go and you look at the votes, you can see that it's 31 yeses and 29. Instead of nay votes, it's no votes, NV, which means they weren't present to vote. So as soon as they said, go home, I got in my car and I was driving home to Tucson, and I got a text saying, okay, they're voting now. So I was able to just stream it on my phone and listen while I was driving home. And they actually went through the sham of voting for this ridiculous Republican wish list. I'm not even going to call it a budget. But, it's just really unfortunate. Because these are your tax dollars. And you ask us to represent you. And what this feels like to me is ego and games. We had started 6 weeks ago, the chair of appropriations. I have been on him for 4 years. Because he'll do the budget and he'll say, I want this to be bipartisan. And I will say to him, Mr. Livingston, do you know what makes a bipartisan budget? And he was like, what do you mean what makes a bipartisan budget? You vote for it. And I said, no. Bipartisan budget is not Republicans doing the work and saying, here, now you vote for this. It is conversations from the beginning at the table, negotiating together in order to get the votes. That is bipartisan, and I have been asking him for my freshman year, Mr. Livingston, will you talk with me about the budget? Can we have a conversation? He just pushed me off. This year, he finally came to me and he said, let's have budget conversations. And so this is the most egregious for me because we started out. We were in a room together with the Democratic House members and the House Republicans and OSPB, which is the office for the budgeting, the governor's office and JLBC. All the players were in a room together to talk about the budget. We had spreadsheets in front of us, and I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to do this. We are actually going to work together and do this. One meeting, there was a question asked, and the Republican popped off in disrespect, and we checked him on it, and I think that came from the governor's team, checked him on it, and then somebody else said, no, you can't be like that in this room, and then it just blew up. That member, the Republican member, said, see, we knew you were going to gang up on us, and that was it. They took their toys and they went home. We couldn't even have a hard conversation and iron out a disagreement. So that for me just feels even more like a poke in the eye because I thought we actually were going to get somewhere, and the moment it got tough, the chair took his toys and went home, took his spreadsheets and went home, and then was just silent for 3 weeks. But it started the conversation, and the governor's team's like, okay, they're talking budget, let's get them all. And so all the other players have come to the table. It'll be interesting to see next week the parliamentary moves of how this works out. But I tell you all of this to let you all know that even though we are in the minority party, we've got a governor in the tower, which gives us some leverage and some power. And I also want you to know that I'm here, I am showing up to every table that I am invited to, because I know that if I can get in that room, I get to represent you, right? And I get to represent our values. And as tiring and frustrating and hard as it is, the moments when we get to have these successes and you can just push a little bit, those are some pretty incredible wins, because at the end of the day, this is how democracy works. And I want to be a very big part of keeping our democracy going. Now, the chair and I are going to have to go back and we're going to have to make up. And I will promise this to you all, I'm going to go back and keep those lines of communication open with that chair, because at this point, with his team being in the majority and our team being in the minority, I can't get anything done without him. And so I'm going to go back, we're going to make up, we're going to make nice, and I'm going to push him, continue to push him to work collaboratively with me. Because I owe it to him to be better, and I owe it to you all for me to be the best I can be. So I'm going to stop the budget story right there. I'm going to thank you for your time, and I'm going to let our dear, dear senator and my mentor and the person who, when I have tough days, I can always call her. Her door is open. She picks up the phone anytime, but she is a true comrade and colleague, and has done a lot to continue to bring me along. So, Senator, would you come and give the rest of the story?
Story, Representative, what's the story behind your shirt?
Oh my gosh. So, Pride, sorry. Yeah, Bisbee Pride was this morning, so I was on the other part of Legislative District 21. I was marching in the Pride Parade, and then attended a nice little reception, and then looked at my watch and I thought, oh my gosh, I gotta get to Green Valley. So I'm fresh from Pride, and and so glad. Before I hand this off, I will say that it makes me so happy to hear that you guys, you call them protests, but let me tell you, in all of this, the biggest form of resistance, and this is what I am about these days, is resisting. The biggest form of resistance is to create and experience joy. And those protests, when we come together and we are a collective, that's creating joy. When we can see each other as human beings and speak in and create and live into our human connection, that creates joy, and it is the best form of resistance. So y'all keep going. And I was down in Bisbee, having some fun with Pride, and certainly enjoying all of the joy that was down there.
I am so grateful that I serve with Representative Stahl Hamilton. She is my sounding board, and she is really we work so well together, and I just want all of you to know is that we are both your public servants. So I wanted to start with that.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. But let me step back about 1,000 steps. I've been serving Southern Arizona since 2013. Started 8 years in the House, and now I'm in my 5th year in the Senate. And what I've learned over the years is that every year the budget is very, very different.
Yes.
So one year, we actually ended our legislative session in 83 days. We are supposed to have a budget by 100 days. But normally we go past the 120 days. Those other 11 years, my 13th budget. So keep in mind that when the whole time that the Democrats have been at the legislature, we have been in the minority. But we have had wins. And we have continued to work very hard to represent not only our legislative districts, but the state of Arizona. And that's where we come from. That is where the Democrats come from, is because we are the party of the people.
Yes.
We represent the people. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, or where you live, or who you decide to love, or whatever you want to be. We will represent you with love, with respect. And so I'm going to be talking about the budget, but I wanted to kind of tell you of several things. Is we are constantly fighting for the rights of women, the rights of LGBTQ plus communities, etc., etc. And what we as Democrats continue to do is we stick to the facts. And it is very emotional. It's very emotional when individuals come to the committees and they testify, and we are impacting their lives. We're impacting their parents. We're impacting these transgender young people, and we have to continue to give them a voice. And we continue to not be disrespectful, but to stick to the facts. And that is what we do as Democrats. So, budget. The Senate has actually, we've been working on the budget, and as the representative has indicated, is that we are. I'm the minority whip. Okay. However, I'm not in those conversations because it's the minority leader, the assistant minority leader, and the ranking member of appropriations, which happens to be 3 of our 4 leaderships. But they keep me very, very much updated. So in the budget, what we're doing is we have been talking to our caucus, and we know our priorities. Okay, but what's unfortunate is that we have been given numbers. Okay, so supposedly, and this may change, is that there's going to be X amount of money that's going to go to the Senate, Republicans. So, and then the House Republicans, and then there's a pot of money for the governor that us as Democrats have to share with her. So they get their special projects paid for, get funded. Well, I have to tell you that I push back on a lot of that. I do not agree with that. I think the money should be going to all the state of Arizona and not special projects. So saying that is that when we talk about the budget, we have to really negotiate, and we really have to be present. And so I'm very glad that the representative said her story, but I'm going to tell you my story. The Senate Democrats are not in agreement with the budget. We have been fighting for our priorities, and we are not. And as I told my caucus, is I will not settle for crumbs. I want the meal. I want to be able to have that. And some of my colleagues in my caucus disagree with me, but I will not settle for crumbs. We are not putting money where it should be. We are taking money away. So let me kind of fast forward. With the awful bill that is going through our federal government at this time, right? What is going to occur when that is passed and signed by the president? We do not have enough money to actually pay for access, SNAP, etc. So we're not preparing for that. What we're doing is, we have extra money, so let's spend it. That's where I'm coming from. I do not agree with what's happening right now. And I am pushing back, and other members of my caucus are pushing back. We are going to know more on Monday in regards to if we get anything else. But we are getting right now crumbs. Because low-income tax credits, housing tax credits, I don't know if we're going to get that. And that means putting people into homes, shelters. There's a program that's called 1-to-1, which is going to take away food from the people of Arizona. That's not part of the budget. Those are several examples of what is occurring at this time. So I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sad, I'm angry.
Good for you.
Okay? And I am expressing myself to my caucus. And I have to tell you that we do work with the House Democrats, but we have to do much more to keep that going. And yes, we have our priorities, and we are going to work on those priorities, but we have to do much better for the state of Arizona. And I respect our Democratic governor. Governor Hobbs has been doing a wonderful job, and we need to get her reelected. But I'm going to be honest. I'm not. The thing is she's going to have to prove to the people of Arizona, the voters of the people of Arizona, the voters of Arizona, that she can get reelected. And that's what we have to. That's what we need to work on. We need to work on being able to have budgets that are going to be for the people of Arizona, right? And we have to show that to the voters of the state of Arizona that we are taking care of them, that we are doing our job. A reporter once asked me, he says, why are you supporting these migrants, these individuals that are coming into the state of Arizona? And I was very highly criticized for a year, maybe over a year. And I said, because once they're in the state of Arizona, Arizona has a moral obligation to take care of them. That is what I'm saying. And the thing is there is money. We just have to make sure that everything's on the table. Make sure that everything that we look at, that we look at our priorities, and our first priority is the people of Arizona. It's not about special projects. It's not about, making deals. It's not about being behind closed doors. We have to be transparent. We have to be able to tell the state of Arizona, this is where we're coming from. So, with that being said, the Senate Democrats are very close to getting some support for the budget. But it's very, very difficult when individual senators are actually saying this is what's important to my legislative district. And where I come from is how does it impact Southern Arizona? Well, actually Legislative District 21 and 19. You guys are next door. I think about you guys. Right. Then how it's going to impact the region, and then how it's going to impact the state of Arizona. And that is where I come from. That's where I am advocating from. And I have to tell you is that I don't know, many of you in this room probably don't remember when I first ran for Sahuarita Town Council, and I was horrible at public speaking. I have to tell you, but I have come to feel confident, and I have come to tell you exactly where I'm coming from, and that I'm not afraid, right? I have been threatened already that they're going to put another Democrat to run against me, and what I did is I looked at them right in the eye and said, go for it. This is not the first time you threatened me, and this probably won't be the last time, right? I'm termed out of the Senate this time. This is my third term. It'll be my fourth term. I don't know what my future is, but I have to tell you, I have really enjoyed serving all of you. And I don't care where you live. I do constituent services for everybody across the state of Arizona. I don't sit there and say, oh, well, you live in legislative 18, 19. No. If you need help, I will try to help you the best I can. So, one of the things that I really enjoyed, is that some of you came up to the Capitol, and I have to tell you, it was because what we did that day was we came together, we went to the Rose Garden, we spoke our mind, we held our signs, and we need to continue to do that, because that's what you did this morning on the corner, 1,000 of you. Is you came and you spoke, you shared your thoughts, I answered questions for you, hopefully. Maybe it wasn't what you wanted to hear, but it was coming from the heart. So that's I kind of diverted away from the budget, because the budget is going to be what it is, okay? We're going to start, and as Representative Stahl Hamilton said, it's going to take 3 days. We're going to be there at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, because the Constitution of the state of Arizona says that bills have to be read 3 times. Because our past legislators, some of them are illiterate, so they had to read each of them. Well, they were ranchers, right? When we first became the state. And so, this is back when we became a state in 1912. Right. So that's why we have to stay until midnight, because then that's day 2. Okay. And then why we stay for midnight, because we can do day 3. And so so those are the kind of things that we as at the legislature we do. And as the representative said, they'll sit there and say, well, we'll give you enough time to go home and change, and you kind of come right back. And so no complaining here. But the budget is a document that represents us, the people of Arizona, and that document should be what Arizona should be doing. And again, we can agree to disagree, find common ground. If we don't listen to each other, we're not going to get anywhere, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we have to do better. And we need to be able to do that, not only as legislators, but of the people of Arizona. And I'm so glad, and I'm so delighted that you're pushing back on the administration in Washington, D.C., because that is very unacceptable. When I heard about the news this morning, when an individual went and actually shot a lawmaker in Minnesota, shot a second lawmaker in Minnesota, it makes you think, right? Wow, could that happen to me? I'm going to tell you, I've gotten death threats. But what I tell the media is, it's okay. I made a decision to be in that office. Leave my family alone.
Right.
And but hatred, discrimination, whatever you want to call it, they do not see any boundaries. And that's what makes me upset. So I want to leave it on a positive note. We need you. We need you strong. We need you to fight the good fight. When I say fight, I'm not saying physically. I'm talking about being there in the public and saying enough is enough. We should not live in a country what is happening right now. We should not be living this way. And we need to continue to be that power that has to give back. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, so thank you both very much. I want to add to what Rosanna talked about when we went up to the Phoenix, and she gave us a wonderful tour. She's a wonderful host. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it? And we'll do it again. She's invited us again. She wants us to stay longer.
I don't even feed you.
Okay, sign up. Wonderful. So again, Kate, you got the microphone. Okay. So we'll open it up to questions, and Kate will walk around with the mic so we all can hear the question. Let's see who gets it.
This is a very basic question, but what is a caucus?
Oh, yeah, so our caucus is just simply a way of saying in our two-party system we have the Democratic caucus and we have the Republican caucus. So our caucus is when all of our members gather together, and it's part of the legislative process. So when a bill gets dropped and it gets heard in committee, and if it passes out of committee, it's got to go to the caucus. So it'll And in the House, every Tuesday we have caucus. So the Republicans have their meeting room, the Democrats have their meeting/hearing room, where we sit and we go through all of the legislation as a caucus. And so that's what it is. It's what we use to say when we gather, or how we describe our group of people. Our Democrats is our Democratic caucus, and it's something that we do in the bill process.
And just FYI, in the Senate, there's 30 of us, and 17 Republicans and 13 Democrats, and out of those 13, there's 11 women.
It seems to me that there's an awful lot of time wasted. To do this for 3 times, it's ridiculous. I mean, can't we update ourselves somehow? And the other thing I'd like to know is the frivolous bills that have come before Governor Hobbs. I mean, it's just ridiculous, some of these things. It's like our legislature doesn't really care about the people. It's their individual wants. So, can't you people stop this somehow?
It's a numbers game.
Put us in the majority.
Yeah.
Again, the majority, we'll take care of that. Over 1,000 bills were introduced. I think, what was it, maybe 300, 400 were actually put into, assigned to a committee. And I believe, I don't know, maybe 200 have gotten back to the governor's desk. So I agree with you 100%. It is a waste of our time. But why we have not changed the Constitution, because it's the same Arizona Constitution that when we first started. But understand also is we do not read the bill entirely. I should have clarified that. What we do is it's by bill number and title only. So when we have a reader that does it, they're not reading the whole, because some of these bills, I've seen 500-page bills. So yes. So to answer your question is when a lot of wasted time, as Representative Stahl Hamilton said, is we hurry and wait. So we go one day, we do a little bit of work, and then we're gone. The Senate has been less days than the House has.
And I'll step back to the 3 times. Start to finish, when you start a bill at the Arizona State Legislature, there are 17 spaces, so 18 steps to get it to the governor's desk. So there are 17 spots where you can stop that legislation. Now that's a good thing if it's, in my opinion, bad legislation, because you've got multiple attempts to try to stop it. It's not a great thing when it's your legislation that you think is a really good idea, trying to get it to the governor's desk. But it's part of the process, I will say the pace when session starts, the first 6 weeks, you are hearing bills in your own chamber. So House bills get assigned to House committees. We hear them in House committee. You go to caucus, committee on the whole, third read. When we're done with third read, those bills go across the courtyard to the other chamber. And you have 4 weeks in the other chamber. So all of the House bills will be heard in the Senate. They'll be assigned to, first and second read, assigned to committee, caucus, committee on the whole, we call it COW, and third read. And from there, if everything's in agreement, it goes up to the governor's desk. So we have the first 6 weeks. You only have 6 weeks, and usually by week 3 is where, if your bill's not progressing by week 3, it's a hard sell to get it finished, heard, on the floor, over to the other side. So the 3 reading, for me, I actually kind of like it, because it feels like we're in a pressure cooker, and time is accelerated in those first 6 weeks. And so I like the reading it 3 times, because it gives me an opportunity to breathe and know where my legislation is, or know where the bad legislation is, because stuff goes so fast and we have so much coming at us. Like the senator said, they did 1,000 bills. I think this year in the House it was the most ever, and it was somewhere around 1,500 bills. That's a lot of legislation to keep track of. So I do like the 3. And now if you all are, with your legislative, your LD meetings, and anytime we nominate somebody, we nominate them 3 times, right? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? It's built into the process of what we do to either give people time to jump on or to stop, right? So it's just part of the process. I personally like it because it gives me a minute to breathe and keep track of what's going on. It makes me anxious when it's my stuff because I want it to hurry up and get through. But that part is a good part of the process. Because if something gets by you, then you waste a lot of time trying to back up and stop it. So that piece is good.
And just one more thing, to that point, is that the fact is that very few Democratic bills are heard.
That's it.
And that's what makes it incredibly disappointing. Okay. And then also, I just want to add one more thing, is we have what's called the strike everything. So a bill that goes through the House, okay, and then it gets to the Senate and they do what's called a strike everything. So as the representative said, oh yeah, I really like this bill, it was good, right? And when it comes back to the House after the process, in the Senate, and it's a totally different bill. So we have to juggle a lot.
Hello, I'm an immigrant. When I became a naturalized citizen, one of the things I had to swear to was that I rejected all allegiance to princes and potentates. Now, what can you, as our representatives, do to educate the people as to what's in this big, glorious HR1? Because buried in it, I have found a clause which would reject any obligation on the executive branch. And one of the things I did learn when becoming a citizen was that we have 3 co-equal branches of government. On the other hand, both Republican and Democrat presidents have been bypassing the legislative branch with executive orders. The fact that it's on steroids at the moment, what can I say? But the thing that really worries me is if the legislative branch is being bypassed and HR1 passes with a clause which would allow the executive branch ignore the legislative or the judicial branch, what then have we other than a potentate? Thank you.
Well, let me tell you that I was speaking to my father and my mother, okay, and they're naturalized citizens. They actually came up from Mexico to make a better life, and that was their question as well. As I've never seen this, this way of government in the United States. So to answer your question is the only way that we're going to change it is that people are going to have to change it. Well, I'm gonna suggest that there's a lot of podcasts out there that if I don't know if you're into social media, but there's a lot of podcasts that are actually talking exactly that, about how the fear of the Supreme Court, about how the favoritism to our current president is with the Supreme Court. There is information out there.